What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Alpha Skies. Today we're going to be talking about the Day 1 contest mode for Destiny 2's re-release of the raid King's Fall. But of course, before we get into that, I would obviously like to congratulate Team Elysium for completing the Day 1 raid race. And I would also like to go ahead and start with informing people that are watching this video that this is my personal opinion, and that if you don't agree, that is perfectly okay. First, I'd like to go ahead and start with one major key issue that I think myself personally, as well as many other players, had with this Day 1 release. And I think it truly still begins on what most of us players have probably already heard about at this point, but that was the fact that the Day 1 of this raid race was placed on a Friday. And with that being the case, this was obviously something that did reduce the number of players that were even able to participate in the first place. Bungie's reasoning for having made this change was that they wanted to do this in order to prevent another situation like we had seen with the Vow of the Disciple raid Day 1. That being the case, they were going to be in office Friday and they wouldn't be in on Saturday, as they do have a Monday to Friday work schedule. Now, I personally do agree that they do need to be in office for these special types of occasions, but I feel like they need to make some kind of adjustment in the work schedule so that they can still make this available on Saturday and not reduce so many players that are able to play. A lot of people take one look at something like that and they don't really think too much of it. They think, okay, it is what it is. The only thing we can do at this point is just simply move forward. But regardless of this change being made, we still saw several game issues on Day 1 of the raid race. And also keep in mind that a lot of these issues that we were having currently at that time, as the time of this video releasing, are actually still currently plaguing the game's current sandbox. One thing to take note of is that we currently have grenade launchers still disabled, as they were doing significantly more damage than what they were initially intended to receive from the buff that they were given. And although personally I don't think that grenade launchers themselves would have made a lot of the clears in the raid that much better or easier to clear, but I think it's the fact that there's a possibility that some of the encounters could have been made significantly easier if some of the weapons like Anarchy were available. Anarchy Snipes has always been a very solid combo that players have gone to for very consistent damage against bosses and majors, and we've done that for a fairly decent amount of time now. And there is absolutely no way to know for certain whether or not it would have made them any easier or any harder, because again, they are actually still currently disabled to this day. And once again, I think it can only really be harmful that we are seeing some of the weapons reduced on the Day 1 release of the raid, limiting what players can actually use. Next thing we're going to go over is another major bug in the game that I actually feel was extremely harmful and impactful on the actual Day 1 release, and in my opinion demanded more attention than it has gotten and has actually still yet to receive. Arc 3.0 was a major highlight of this season as a rework, as it offered a lot to each class. But there is a major bug with the Warlock and Titan class, which where no matter how much resilience you currently had, you were not receiving any of the damage reduction benefits that you were supposed to receive. And with that issue being in the way, you were completely unable to take these subclasses into the raid whatsoever. If you were to actually go in and equip this subclass, you were greeted with a death screen almost immediately after the encounter started, as you were melted by the scaled up enemies and bosses. Once again, it is extremely hard for me to say for certain that I think having these classes unplayable really made a huge impact on the raid itself for Day 1, as once again it was a very limited event and they are still bugged to this point several days later. And I think it's extremely important that we actually take a look back and remember that we had to do all of this on a Friday. It felt extremely counterproductive for Bungie to insist that they needed to be on deck to fix any major issues that could potentially harm the Day 1 raid. And yet, there were several issues and they literally did nothing. So for me personally, it did feel a bit more like a slap in the face than anything to have to not only play the Day 1 raid on a Friday, where I was unable to play with some of my clanmates or some of my friends because they were working, but to not even be able to do it on a subclass that was just released that I wanted to play, because although Bungie was on deck, they absolutely did nothing to actually fix any of the spaghetti coding and failures in place. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love King's Fall, and I think the re-release version of this raid was an extremely enjoyable and very fun raid. The weapons are absolutely phenomenal, the roles are extremely unique, I even got lucky enough to get Touch of Malice. But nonetheless, I do actually think that Bungie dropped the ball on this Day 1, and in some ways even worse than they did for Vow of the Disciple. Once again, if you guys feel differently, that's perfectly fine. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And if you guys want more enjoyable Destiny 2 content, go ahead and hit that like button and the subscribe button. It will really help me out a lot. And once again, my name is Alpha Skies, and I will be catching you guys in the next video.
Dude, you could bug the shit out of those tanks. That was so fun.
You talking about the one where you like hop in and out of it?
Yeah.